Hi everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of November the 9th, 2020. This horoscope is brought to you by 1millionnights.com. We have a very active sky playing out all throughout the week where we are very likely to experience a crescendo of energies, also in a very dual and two-sided way where there is a powerful energy of hope, optimism, faith, in the sense that you just know in a very non-linear logic kind of way that everything is going to be okay. There is a greater divine plan, for example, for everything that is happening in the world out there in our personal lives. So it will lead somewhere. Eventually, no crisis, no turmoil lasts forever. The universe is constantly in flow, so something will change, something will shift ultimately. And this is the sun holding a beautiful, very spiritual and optimistic trine with Neptune. And also the sun forms a minor astrological aspect, a quincunx or an inconjunction with Mars in its home sign of Aries, which means that where there is a will, there has to be a way, even if in the present moment that way is not yet seen or not yet be able to use practically in the present moment. And also this is the energy of ambition, to find a solution, find a way, find a mean of achieving what we desire in any circumstance, even when, things are not that favorable. Another very important energy shift that is going to take place next week is Mars finally standing still in the sky and preparing to go direct. And this happens on the 14th of the month. And this energy shift can be very positive. It can also be rather uncomfortable. It really depends on us how we use it, because Mars going direct means that our vitality, our ambition, our passions, the spark of flame, inner fire so to speak, which burns inside of us, ignites once more. So we are ready to fight for what we believe in. We are ready to pursue our goals, our dreams, our ambitions. But of course, this mobilizes all of the energies. For some people, this can mean a well-needed return of that inner vitality, inner passion, while for others, the return of the frustration and this anxiety that things have to be accomplished right now, not tomorrow, not in a week, not in 2 years, but now. And this sense of urgency can spike up anxiety levels, and it can stress us out from the inside. So it really depends on how we use this energy. But since Mars is also the ancient ruling planet of the sign of Scorpio, and we are going to have the sun, then at the end of the week the moon, and also Mercury in this part of the sky, so that energizes the whole symbolism of Scorpio that much more. It gives power to our instincts, to our core feelings. From certain perspectives, it awakens the inner animal, which can also be a very good thing, because that is where our power of endurance, of survival, of very quick, sudden decisions actually lies. Because one of the primary functions of that inner animal, our reptilian brains, is to protect our integrity from every single perspective. And of course, there is the other side of the energy, which is not that comfortable, and we're talking about the third and final conjunction, meeting in the sky, of Jupiter and Pluto, which is a really powerful karmic energy, which has to basically invite in all of our lives much needed karmic closures, certain kind of terminations. This is where we can actually see the final result of our transformation. May it be material transformation, for example, our status quo, our values and principles which govern our material lives. May it be our relation with the state, with society, with external reality, so to speak, or may it be seen collectively as the old order and its collapse especially, but at the same time, this is where, since it's the final meeting of Jupiter and Pluto in the sky in this period, it also has to reveal to all of us what the new order, what the future, whatever we are going towards, evolving towards, working towards, has to potentially look like. So basically this is like a meeting of the past and the future, and also the present, because everything happens in the now, where it will give us strength and truth. Pluto ultimately can represent the objective truth. All the uncomfortable elements that we have to look at and observe and of course process, while Jupiter amplifies all of this. And naturally Jupiter has also certain kind of qualities to it where it represents the inner truth, the more subjective version of the truth. And when these two planets meet in the sky, well, that is a big eye-opener. For example, whatever has taken place in our lives in March and April, well, all of those karmic elements are going to be returning in our lives, either for us to analyze them one last time and extract all the wisdom, the experience and the knowledge from it, or the certain elements have to have their closure, their termination, or the final stages of their metamorphosis. So one way or another, regardless if this energy is like a personal crisis, like a moment of maximum tension in our lives, when very delicate, complicated, or, radical decisions await us, in either way, this energy gets things done, it mobilizes everything, and it sets us up for the future to step into the new era, because what comes after this is Saturn and Jupiter moving into the sign of Aquarius in the 21st of December 2020, and that basically opens up the new. And the new can only be born out of brand new thoughts, principles, desires, or basically our mindset, our upgraded mindset. This is the new part that we're going to be co-creating together, and with the universal intelligence, and of course with Mother Nature as well. But the new also has to have an element of structure, and the basis, the foundation, and that is the ashes, the purified and distilled elements of the old, which are just now being broken to their cores, like a profound global or collective alchemical process that all of us are doing in the present moment. So that is why everything old in our lives, one way or another, has to find a closure, a conclusion, or be transformed into strength and experience, because all of these things are the foundations of whatever new we are stepping into. Now, as I said earlier, this energy is highly uncomfortable, because just think about it. It definitely represents that whatever is going on the world stage, and here I mean the sanitary crisis, the political crisis, the social crisis, all aspects of this really strong pivotal point that all of us are experiencing in our collective history. Well, things are going to get a little bit tougher. Things are going to be evolving really fast. And since a part of Pluto's symbolism is the deconstruction of the old order, well, that means that either the virus situation can massively spike out of control, or there are going to be significant financial losses, more lockdown, or actually more protests and events which basically stir up the spirits. They ignite the inner warrior in a lot of people. But the good news is that solutions are also going to be born under this very strong and potent energy. And individually, maybe it's even more favorable, even if this might amplify certain weak points for you personally, a crisis in your life, maybe an ongoing karmic theme which you just struggled with and couldn't shift in, the past 20 years of our lives. Maybe it can be like a soul contract where you just cannot shift out of being one way or another obligated almost to do a certain kind of activity, for example, like a service. Maybe there's a job or a career which you simply cannot shift regardless of what you do. Fate always makes it in such a way that you cannot quit when you want to, or circumstances don't allow you to basically shift it. Or for example, it can be a person where a divorce just cannot take place, or an illness which just keeps returning, or any kind of blockage or obstacle, or a fated energy which you just know that it's fated because it's like an ongoing theme in the past 20 years of your life. Now there is a heightened chance, if you're struggling with anything like that, to find a closure, to find a resolution, to finally put a stop to it and begin something new in your life. Even if it doesn't really mean that it happens instantly, next week, there and then everything is solved. It is likely to happen gradually over the course of the next 6 months, but as long as it's happening and you get like actual signs that it's gonna get better or there is an alternative, well, that also helps a great deal. And that also works very well with the Sun and Neptune, and ultimately at the very end of the week, the new moon and Neptune trine, which is an infusion of hope, dreams, and potentially revealing the future that you're heading towards. Now also at the beginning of the week, Venus in her home sign of Libra opposes Mars in his home sign of Aries. Now whenever there is an opposition, it means that the symbolism and energies of the two planets and the two signs meet and try their very best to balance themselves each out, to find an equilibrium, to find an expression of the two sometimes opposing energies that works in your life for you personally, regarding, of how your life is arranged at that very special moment in time. And in many circumstances, the opposition also requires a compromise. Now, Venus in her home sign of Libra is everything that we love. It is, the value that we possess in our relationship, in our partnerships, who our friends are, who our partners are, who we are married to, who we do business with, who we have contracts with, for example, are one way or another a reflection of us, our personality, and the values that we have in our lives. While Mars in his home sign of Aries is our sovereign wills, it is our desires, in one way or another, even the ego, what we want to do with ourselves and our identity. So it can be these two inner elements which meet and, find a middle way, a middle ground. So for some people, this can mean like an inner wisdom of the heart and of the heart space, an emotional power strong enough to tune down the ego, to tune down like certain desires which don't really serve any of their relationship that well, because it can make them seem like very selfish people. So for some, this can mean like an inner calling, an inner awakening to have mutuality, equality, fairness and justice in all their relationship, even if that means having to surrender certain things in the favor of that other person. But of course, this also can be perfectly true in the other sense around, where this inner Mars awakens and basically it forces us to fight, to stand up for ourselves, to protect equality, fairness in our lives, regardless of who and what challenges it. if another person challenges it, or if it's actually the representatives of centralized power which challenge it. So, this can be a moment of big unrest collectively when we cannot simply accept any signs of injustice, any signs where the law and legislation fails the individual. This also represents the energy of mutual help, supporting each other's causes, those which have to do with justice, equality. So we can expect, more unrest and uprising to be happening out there in the world stage. And individually, while this might represent that we might have to make a compromise regarding our relationship, this can ultimately mean that maybe we have to surrender being single and independent if a very special someone just appears out of nowhere in our lives, and we might want to start a relationship based on true commitment. But this can also play out in the opposite way, where we might be in a long-term relationship which offers us stability and certain kind of comfort, but this is where our cry for independence may be a predominant inner power, and that may mean other kind of compromise where they either transform their relationship so that they can respect each other's need for independence and maybe solitude, or it can represent, splitting apart. Also, in the first days of next week, Mercury is going to be in an erratic degree in the sign of Libra, and that puts a pressure on all our communications, our diplomacy, our negotiation skills. So this works hand in hand with the Venus opposing Mars energy, because there are going to be some very serious discussions, maybe contradictory opinions and perspectives shared, or it can simply represent the process of fixing any kind of relationship where it is absolutely possible and a middle path pleasing both sides can be found, but it may involve a lot of self-discipline, work and effort from a psychological perspective, because, Libra is all about equality, balance, and fairness. But of course, Mercury will very soon change signs and go back into the sign of Scorpio, where it started its retrograde period from. And since it is still in shadow, this is a very profound energy of self-discovery, self-knowledge. This is where we have to think everything through, especially what happened in late September when Mercury actually entered into shadow. What decisions did we have in our lives back then? What communication? How were our relationships with other people? What was the big theme that we were trying to accomplish back then? Because we might have to go over all those things once again and truly think things through, but in a way that we have to find a conclusion. We have to know what we actually want, where we want to take things, what our desires truly are, and how we authentically and honestly feel about people, situations, even if it's just our own subjective situation. And also, as soon as Mercury enters this part of the sky and starts advancing, it will rehold the opposition with its higher octave Uranus, which is the energy and symbolism of powerful revelations, discoveries, epiphanies. From a scientific perspective on the world stage, this is really, really good news, because we are looking for exactly this expression of Scorpio, which can mean regeneration, healing, finding solutions, tapping into our ingenuity. Mercury in Scorpio is so very much detective energy, researchers, scientists, especially microbiology and all the very, very hard to see things even in science. And Uranus can represent the energy of sudden discovery, sudden realization, putting all pieces of the puzzle back together and to see the big picture. In a very, very short time, it may come as a surprise, as a shock, in a very unexpected way, or it may result from like a coincidence or even accident, where the intent was something totally different, but it leads to unexpected discoveries, or being able to understand the subject that much better, which might have nothing to do with our original intent. So this is where we're definitely going to be hearing a lot of news and communication from the scientific community, from the doctors and researchers, not just regarding the COVID situation, but also diverse subjects, for example, archaeology, paleontology, other branches of science, and even, spirituality and the occult. But of course it also has a shadow side, because Uranus is a very unforeseeable and unpredictable planet. So this can represent, mediatic warfare, for example, like cyber terrorism, computer viruses spreading, disruption, confusion online. It can also represent powerful secrets, for example, being revealed and they causing a big controversy, conspiracies, and the mediatic warfare that all of us are pretty much used to in the present moment. Even more so that Neptune is squaring the North Node in Gemini, so that represents communication, our way of processing and understanding, deciphering information, what we do with it practically. So even though we might be bombarded with a lot of information, we might not be able to process them, or we might not simply be able to decide what it means for us personally, what attitudes we have towards it, or if there is something that we have to do, or if we should actually just detach from it and see it from the perspective of an observer. And this is perfectly valid regarding the events on the world stage, but also purely individual things in our lives. This energy is going to get even more intense just towards the very end of the week, when Venus is going to be holding squares with the Capricorn planets, Jupiter and Pluto most of all, and also Eris, goddess of discord, in the sign of Aries. So that means a T-square. Now Eris is all about rebellion. It is all about having her way, her voice being heard, her truth being accepted by other people, by the community, by the whole world basically. So this energy might really, really agitate us a little bit, especially emotionally, because Venus is our value systems, our inner truth from an emotional perspective, everything that we love, everything that we hold dear. And this is where she squares Jupiter. So our dissatisfactions, everything that irritates us, everything that we do not love, everything that we basically feel repulsion towards, can be greatly magnified, amplified by this very strong Jupiter. So this may cause certain conflicts, contradictory discussions, moments of disharmony, especially if you have a stable relationship in your life. But this is a very quick energy. It's not something that's going to last for a long time. So don't make any radical decisions based on how you feel in that present moment. Even if your partner or other people, your colleagues, boss, friends, best friend, your crush even, agitates you, irritates you, it stirs up your inner anger. It's really a good idea not to act upon it, not to be very impulsive, not to generate an aura of repulsion where we just push people away from us. Because as Venus moves on and these squares start to lose their intensity, chances are we are going to be feeling so much more differently, and our anger or that very tensioned moment which might cause us to say not so pleasant things or make a radical impulsive decision, all those things might be regretted after Venus moves in the sign of Scorpio, for example, because its most negative expression there is all those things that we regret, all those things that we feel guilty about, shame, even envy, jealousy. So we really don't want to create even more energy that can make us feel guilt, regret, and shame, etc. But of course, this is also perfectly true regarding new commitments. If something new appears in your life and it's just too good to be true, or so it seems, well, don't make a sudden, quick, greedy, so to speak, decision based on that, but rather take things slowly, analyze it, and if it's actually as good as it seems in a very authentic sense, then by all means, seize and grab the opportunity, but chances are it will turn out to be either an illusion or a karmic temptation where we have to apply our life experience and our true inner wisdom. And since Venus holds the same type of conversation, the square with Pluto as well, well, this energy can represent an unexpected and sudden currency change or change in financial systems, even legislation which governs finances on the world stage or in our cultures, in our countries. We can expect to see changes in diplomatic relations between nations, maybe new treaties, temporary treaties being signed by maybe countries who have a conflicting interest, like for example Turkey and Greece over certain portions of the sea and resources. But it can also represent like a crash in the markets, which ultimately gives birth to something new, which is really an improvisation, but maybe that improvisation is going to be the base element of a new kind of value system in months and even years to come. Now, right at the same time, on the 14th of the month, Mars stands still in the sky and finally finishes its retrograde. Now, of course, it's not out of shadow just yet. That will only take place in 2021. But it is still a very powerful energy shift because it mobilizes things both on the inside but also in external reality. So this means that everything, both psychological, spiritual, material, even karmic, is going to be energized. There is going to be momentum. There is going to be a very quick pace evolution of everything that is stagnating and bending in our lives or on the world stage in the present moment. And as I said earlier, this will also activate the sign and energies of Scorpio that much more, because Mars is the ancient ruling planet of this sign, and it is responsible for all our primal, instinctual, animalistic energies. And even though those have a lot of not so favorable expressions, the favorable expression is that it mobilizes everything one way or another. And just the day after Mars is extremely strong, because whenever a planet stands still in the sky, it is at its strongest. There is going to be a wonderful new moon, a super new moon in the sign of Scorpio, in some parts of the world on the 14th and in other on the 15th of November. So either Saturday or Sunday, which is an energy of profound transformation. As all new moons, this also represents a new beginning, something fresh and new entering our lives, especially that area of life which falls under the rulership of Scorpio for us personally in our own charts. But this new beginning is also a very profound spiritual transformation, or in some cases maybe psychological transformation. It embodies the higher qualities of the sign of Scorpio, which is like a phoenix. It is like a rebirth, something totally new, fresh, and naturally an upgraded version is going to be arising from the ashes, from the ruins of the past. So this energy is one that can truly give us a lot of solutions at this time, but maybe not in the way that we expected, because as I said, the nuance of this energy is mostly either spiritual or psychological, but at the end of the day, it is exactly that part of our beings which determines what happens in our physical reality, because basically everything in our lives is just a reflection of our unconscious patterns. And whenever there is a powerful transformation there, for example, we eliminate old misaligned beliefs from our lives, from our souls. We heal, for example, a broken pattern inside of us, and all of these shift and change and rearrangement of the psychological energies and our own psychological configuration will very quickly reflect on the outside, as in external reality, in one or even more areas of our lives. The Sabian symbol of 23 degrees of Scorpio is the rabbit turning into a nature spirit, and this is really symbolic and rather profound, because the rabbit is the symbol of excess, especially the excess of sexual energies, which are also creative energies, just their lowest possible expression. And if these can transform into their higher octave, into their highest expression, which is love, which is spirituality, which is perceiving the world through a lens of love, acceptance, tolerance, where we know that basically our existence is infinitely valuable, it is protected by the highest forces, because we are just extensions of the universe, which takes care of itself almost in a perfect way. While embodying this big truth, this big spiritual principle can change our lives profoundly, and this is just an example. Or it can be from a psychological perspective, where a can-do attitude, for example, a belief that we are enough to do this, we are skilled enough, we are good enough, we are talented enough, we are beautiful enough, we are attractive enough. Well, this attitude can actually attract a lot of things in our lives as a confirmation of our core faith. This is almost like stepping into the next octave, the higher expression of our current spiritual principles, goals, our own psychological configuration, an upgrade of the archetype that we embody, for example. It can also play out as a confirmation of our faith, where seeing things manifest, for example, before our eyes, or being able to perceive our inner truth in the external reality in the outside, can increase our trust in ourselves, in the roles that we play, in the divine, in the power of the unconscious mind that much more. And that can act like a very powerful magnet, especially that both the sun and the moon, because the new moon means their conjunction, speaks in sextiles with the Capricorn cluster planets, so Jupiter, Saturn and Pluto, and that is the energy of manifestation, especially that the sign of Scorpio can be seen as the pattern, as the architecture, and the sign of Capricorn is the clay the material that we shape and form and mold. And finally, the sextile is the creational process where we infuse faith, the schematic of the architecture, into the clay, and we shape it and mold it, and it becomes real in front of our eyes. And the trine with Neptune, because the new moon is also going to be holding a trine, a supremely harmonious celestial conversation with Neptune, planet of dreams, fantasy, imagination, the source, basically, our own inner divine creativity, which means that whatever new we have to create, so to speak, inside of us, may it be just an emotion, a feeling, a thought, or may it be something reborn from our past, like an old passion, an old goal, etc. Well, it's also divinely guided, because Neptune is like the highest expression of divine inspiration. So we are not even going to be alone in this. The divine is going to guide us each step of the way, as long as we're open and receptive. And at this time, Jupiter still sextiles Neptune. So that is a mystic triangle, which represents that the power of manifestation and just attracting divine help in our lives is that much stronger. And if we need motivation, if we need a sense of urgency, so to speak, well, it's definitely gonna be there with Venus from her home sign of Libra squaring Eris, goddess of discord. This means that our inner Venus, so everything that makes us feel alive, valued, that we matter, that we count, even our principles, even our sense of justice, because she is in her home sign of Libra after all, is going to be triggered by Eris. So basically all of us, regardless from which perspective or in which area of our lives, are going to feel an urgent need to reach out for something new, for something that can offer us options, solutions, or basically, in one word, to make us feel alive, present in our lives, and more or less happy. Because without happiness, there is no life. Without happiness, regardless of what that means for us personally, well, earthly existence is just a prison and a mountain of suffering. So the square between Venus and Eris is basically like our inner selves telling us that life has to have a dual perspective, the sign of Libra, two sides of the scale, where yes, naturally it is full of pain, suffering, all the problems which material existence involves, but there is also has to be happiness, a source of joy, a source of comfort, a source of ease, a source of love, everything that we love, because without it, life is empty, life is just a prison. But we're going to have a separate video about this upcoming super new moon in the sign of Scorpio next week. Well, this concludes your horoscope. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, if you'd like a personal reading, just log on to 1millionnights.com and find your dedicated advisor. Thank you again for listening. Until next time, bye for now.